Welcome back to Legends of Adtech, the podcast that goes beyond the buzzwords and gets straight into the conversation, shaping the future of this industry. It's in partnership with our Season 3 sponsor, Revving, who help digital businesses unlock faster access to the revenue that they've already earned. And they do this through flexible funding solutions designed to keep capital moving. You can learn more at revving.io. I'm your host, Julia Linehan, founder and CEO of The Digital Voice. And today we're diving into one of the most powerful and arguably most debated areas of advertising right now. It is, of course, retail media. Now, everyone says retail media is the future and it's customer first, but what does that really mean in reality? And with first-party data powering it all, how do you strike the right balance between performance and genuine value to the customer? Well, to help us unpack all of this, I'm joined today by Camilla Ray, Planning Director at Nectar360. And she leads an incredibly large 22-person strategic planning team across Sainsbury's, Argos and agency partners. She's got 15 years experience in retail media, so what she doesn't know, we don't need to know. And she's been at the forefront of how data, strategy and commerce come together and what customer first really means in practice. And even more powerful than that, Nectar360 itself sits behind the UK's largest coalition loyalty program, Nectar, giving brands access to insights from over 24 million customers. So it's fair to say, if anyone understands the modern customer, it's Camilla. So welcome to Legends of Adtech.
Thank you so much, Julia. What an introduction. It's a pleasure to be joining you today.
Well, you say that now, and then I'll hit you with your first task, which is you've got 60 seconds or less, and you've got to tell us who you are and where you got to where you are today. Go.
I'm Camilla Ray, Planning Director at Nectar360, which is the retail media arm of the Sainsbury's Group. How I got here is actually a little bit squiggly. So I started my career at a company called Hot Courses. They hold the course national database on behalf of Learn Direct, and I was actually more of a researcher and salesperson, but I got headhunted within that business and I started doing what they called systems, which is basically online applications, payments, intelligent FAQs for colleges and universities' own websites. After that, I went to somewhere called Pink and I looked after the eCRM program for Argos, so a bit of a 360, as you'll see from the intro I gave, but also on a B2B, working on BT business and actually their kind of value add services. In terms of how I've kind of arrived here within Nectar360, I've actually been with the business kind of throughout its full guise. So from the loyalty management group, LMG, through to when we joined a joint business venture with Sainsbury's, then got bought by Sainsbury's, and then here I am today. So more than maybe 60 seconds.
No, you did good. Do you know, it's a cruel question I ask, especially for somebody with lots of years experience, but I think you captured it really well there. So I've got another challenge though, because if you imagine, like, so say somebody new was coming into the industry and it's their first day, I wonder if you can explain, I'll try not to swear because I'll get told off by producer Rem, but let's go for WTF is retail media. Let's start it off there.
Yeah, of course, no problem. So retail media is like advertising, let's be honest. So it's using the retailer data and platforms to connect brands with shoppers. So that's kind of in a nutshell. Retailers like Sainsbury's, obviously the group I work for, know customers better than anyone else based on that transactional data. And that means that brands can really meet customers where they are, understand their behavior, and then what is the purchasing loop? So what is that closed measurement loop that we can finally get to, which I'm sure we'll unpack a bit later. But it's at its best, it's definitely helpful for the customer in terms of it being personalised, but maybe not too personalised. And also it's very effective for brands, so they can truly measure the results of that marketing activity.
Really interesting, isn't it? Because retail media has come into its own, and you think, but you're right, they're in the best place for knowing their customer, and yet it's sort of exploded in the last few years. They've come into their own and gone, yeah, we get it. We've been owning this, sitting on this data and all this knowledge. I wonder what the trigger point for it really exploding. Do you know? Could you pinpoint it?
Yes, I think it's a really interesting question, actually, Julia. And I think we're very lucky that retail media has become a sexy term, if I'm honest. So if I think of my career, actually, shopper marketing or data science, understanding the customer has been threaded throughout my career. And I think now it's just more in the kind of eyes of the media and has become part of that kind of conversation. I think there's a few reasons for that. So if I talk back to the beginning of my career, actually within LMG, I came in as a data planner, and we had 4 channels. So they're kind of the traditional targeted channels, so DM, coupon at till, email and mobile. And if we now look where I am today and what my team has access to, it's over 150 channels, and that's in-store, on-site and off-site. So that's a massive change in terms of, yes, we are talking a number of years, a decade, but, it is a huge step change in terms of how we see connecting with customers in this retail space.
You pulled on loads of different threads there. What does a typical day as a planning director at Nectar360 look like for you, and how much of it lends on what you started as a data analyst and in that data set?
I always laugh at this one because people ask it to me quite a lot, even my dad.
Do they?
And there isn't a
what
typical
do you
day.
do?
Yeah, well, he's an architect, and it's much easier, right, to say I'm an architect and people can understand that. I think there isn't a typical day, and that's probably why I love it so much and why I've stayed in the business and why I find it still so fascinating. I think the main thing that threads it all together is me and my team being obsessed with kind of Nectar data. So when I first joined the business, actually having access to all that granular data, I was like a kid in a candy shop, and I'm still the same today. So I guess what we're looking at is kind of audience planning, campaign optimization, measurement, that kind of thing. So I've given you more of a sense, I guess, of a day, because that was the question. Yesterday I was bringing to life what does summer in sport, including the World Cup, look like in terms of the 4 main customer missions and mindsets. So kind of that data storytelling for our broader team so that they can really talk to the brands and bring that to life for them. I then had a pollen, which is our biggest transformation project. A conversation in terms of our roadmap and kind of the really exciting additional features we want to bring in. So that was something. I then did a bit of a reset on our loyalty work stream. So I think a lot of the time people are thinking about these big bang moments in retail media, but actually we need a drumbeat of loyalty underneath so that we get repeat purchasing, we don't have lapsing, kind of all the nursery programs that you kind of maybe don't think about but are going on in the background. And then finally I spent a lot of time actually with my direct reports, which I love, just thinking about what their goals are for the year ahead and kind of where they are with their teams too.
Well, that sounds more like a week's worth of work. So credit to you, Camilla, on that. So here's the thing, because you mentioned a few things there, and I wrote down I love that, like a kid in the candy shop, and no day is the same. What's because you've been in retail media for 15 years. Are those 2 factors what keeps the role exciting? What keeps you staying? Or is there something else?
Yeah, I think curiosity probably keeps me here, and retail media never stands still, whether it's shopper marketing, retail media, the data, the technology, the new channels coming in, the data partnerships we can make. There's just so much out there that keeps me interested. And I think, in terms of kind of why I stay, it's just at the forefront of a lot that's going on. I think, it's a really exciting place to be. It's evolved, as I've kind of already mentioned. We're moving to a much more dynamic, kind of predictive space, which is hugely exciting. Obviously, it wouldn't be retail media without mentioning AI. There is, some additional AI that's going to be really beneficial to us in terms of actually can it take away some of the kind of boring admin stuff so that me and my team can crack on with much more interesting parts of our role. I guess the main 3 things are technology, customer behaviors, and obviously the dynamic shifts that take place, and then the industry actually, that's also evolving, and Sainsbury's and Argos, although part of the same group, actually very different businesses, and how people shop is completely different too.
So you mentioned there, and you sort of were talking about really 3, you touched on 3 areas actually within that, and you were talking about what's at the forefront and that. So I'm going to pivot slightly and go, taking that, does that reflect in the same, say, what are the 3 biggest topics of debates at, say, retail media or events right now? Because you picked on 3 things there, but are they the same as what's being debated? And you touched on as well AI and all of that. Does that follow through to what everyone's chatting about at the events?
Yeah, there's a few definite themes that are coming through in events. One is measurement and standardisation of measurement, and on the back of that is actually incremental, which is very key. So we're kind of moving from a world from ROAS, so return on ad spend, to iROAS, and actually that's really changing the dial, and that's where we should be. I think there's a few things that play into that, though. There isn't at the moment any industry standards. We're working very closely with ISBA to try and get there, but we all actually measure currently today ROAS, for example, differently. So can we get to a place where incremental ROAS is actually measured in a standard way, which would be great for the brands, obviously, because they don't just work with Sainsbury's, they work with retailers across the UK group and globally as well. So I think that's one of them, standardisation in that sense.
I'm writing down incremental ROAS, iROAS, because I love an acronym, and got it. Buzz term noted.
Another one is definitely AI, and actually how do we use agentic AI potentially in a really smart way. So obviously shoppers are changing their habits. We see, if we look across the pond to the States, actually some people are starting to kind of embed that agentic AI, and it does mean that customers are searching in a very different way. They might not be putting brands in the search, they'll just be talking about getting margarine or whatever it might be, which doesn't come with a brand. So actually that is quite a shift in terms of customers' behaviour. Really, people are starting to adopt this technology. But I guess we also have to be grounded in reality. Still today, 80% of shoppers in the UK are in a physical store. So there's a fast moving AI element, but there's also a base in terms of traditional shopping that needs to hold true. So I guess another area that really is talked about too is this connected commerce. So how do we connect the store to, you know, the digital experiences that are happening, kind of the growth areas, and probably more the exciting stuff that you see at awards and that kind of thing.
So here's a thought, actually, and I want to come on in a minute to customer first, because quite a few of the threads there that you talked about was customer. So I've got a question on that. But while I think about it, I find really fascinating this idea of closing the loop from, say, TV to basket. And that whole chain of events but it feels like it's becoming really connected. It's like the total view of that. With that, how much do you work with? How much do you think about that as you're the end point, the basket, of stepping back and going, actually, well, what's happening on the from a TV perspective, from the moment they watch?
Yeah, you've actually hit the nail on the head of what my team are doing. So we're looking much more at macro trends to then actually micro trends, and then to individual kind of what's happening in that space. So we definitely think about that. We, just to be really clear, we are customer obsessed. So it's not even customer first, it's customer obsessed within Nectar360. We walk in the shoes of our customers. So when a brief comes in to my team, actually, although it's come from a brand, we're always thinking, what does the customer need? We almost have three clients at that stage. So we have the brand who sent us the brief, we have the customer, clearly, that I keep referencing, and I don't apologize for that because they are king, and then we have also category in terms of what the category objectives are at the time. So obviously within Sainsbury's, we understand what's on the corporate customer plan, we understand what the pillars of success are. So that's kind of we sit in a three-way to hit that sweet spot. And so I think, when we think about individual planning, there's a lot for a planner to really deep dive into to get the optimum outcome for those three parties.
And do you know what? It's interesting because there's something I love about your team. And you said there, we like to walk in the shoes of our customers. And am I right that every Christmas or during peak periods like Christmas, Sainsbury's and Argos teams and all the Nectar360 team, you all have to work in store? And how much is that? Is that about actually is it about walking in the shoes of the customer and to see it firsthand, or is it walking in the shoes of those who work on the ground with those 80% that is in shops, buying in shops?
Yeah, I'd actually say it's both. For us, it's both of those things. From a planning perspective, in terms of watching what's happening in store, you can see actually how do customers interact with the media that you've put there for the brands. You can see actually, are there any friction points? Are there anything that actually isn't working? You can almost walk with them and talk to them, which we do, to be like, okay, do you see this, or what do you see, or does anything stand out? So that's really interesting. I think the other bit is actually when you walk in the shoes of the colleagues, so our retail colleagues, you can start to see actually this is just a bit annoying, this piece of POS, or actually this particular thing, not because we've planned it in a bad way, but each store is actually very different. So it might be that it's in a place that actually they're trying to, because it's Christmas and we're at BWS, so beers, wines and spirits, and we're constantly changing the fixture. Actually, to have this bit of pause that we've put in there is just annoying because, I don't know, it's getting bumped by the trolleys each time. So you can start to see bits that you kind of can't plan for, but then with that knowledge you can think about when you go back to kind of the day job. And I guess because we're Argos and Sainsbury's, actually, luckily this year I did one day in each over Christmas. And I love being a store picker. So yeah, I'm going to find the items that our customers want and actually spending time with them, seeing how are they doing that in-store kind of discovery phase as well. So that was pretty interesting, and not that something I'd kind of done before.
You've spoken about it, but let's see if we can pinpoint it. What does a genuinely customer first approach look like in retail media? I feel I know the answer, but I want you to see if you can nutshell it.
Yeah, so I think it is that point I made where, you walk in the shoes of the customer. So that is really understanding who the customer is, what they want from that shopper journey, and it'll be very different for each of us. So I'm a mum of two girls, and actually, I'm a big trolley shopper, and I want ease in and out. I don't want to be messing about. You, Julia, actually, you're curious, you're interested, you want a multi-channel kind of activation. You're checking your app, then you're online, you're checking for value. I'm going to get a good deal, but actually, then when you go in store, you want more of an experience. So it looks different to everyone. It's very personal, but we really have to think about that when we're planning our activations.
So if we take it a step further, then who really owns the customer relationship today? Is it the retailer, is it the brand, or is it the consumer themselves?
Yeah, so for me, customer is king. The customer owns the relationship. So actually, they're probably more in control than they ever have been, in the sense that I think they understand there's a value exchange. If you look to the loyalty programs now, clearly they're giving us data so that we can do the amazing activations that we do, but they're getting a value exchange back. So if that's loyalty points, or if that's, something else over and above in terms of an exclusive offer, or, with Nectar, obviously there's the opportunity to build up points for partnerships and get BA flights, for example. So there is a true value exchange, and I think that makes them kind of king. Now, clearly we understand the transactions, we understand kind of the loyalty metrics, how many of our partners, for example, do they play into, how many brands do they interact with, what are the substitutional products that happen within a basket, that kind of thing. And then the brands obviously hold an emotion with customers. So if we look at the heritage brands, they obviously do a great job in that. And then some of the disruptors, maybe for the Gen Zs, we start to see, actually, yeah, they hold an emotion as well. So we all have a part to play, but I think when it works best is obviously when we all collaborate together in terms of the retail brands to, again, have the customer at the heart of it.
I think that's omnichannel and its finest. I'm just curious though. I've got this vision in my mind, like a puppeteer, of thinking about that customer. How much of we or you, I suppose, or other retail media companies directing the customer on that journey behind the scenes, or is the customer in control?
I'm not going to pretend that we don't have a sway. We absolutely do. We shape the journeys, we think about the design, we understand the promotions and the messaging. So there's behavioural science sitting behind it. But I think, customers do have a choice. You don't have to opt in, you don't have to shop at that shop. And actually, again, going back to my dad, it's what I talked to him about. So he's like, I don't want this spam marketing. I'm like, no, and you shouldn't have to. If it's spam, you should just unsubscribe. But actually, if we do it right, then this should be something that is personal to you. You feel like it's a benefit. So if I say to you, Dad, I don't know, a certain brand that you really like and you use it every day, you're going to get additional points, or actually you're going to, if you buy a bit more, they're going to give you some sort of reward. Oh yeah, I like that.
Definitely, yeah.
There is a balancing act to play, and you've got to make these experiences feel useful to the customer.
You're right. It's still the benefit. The journey they then go on is the really enjoyable one, and the end result is one that's what they want. So it was I take away my evil puppetry. That should not do that on calls.
No, but I think it's a fair point. Sorry to interrupt you. I think it's a fair point. I think people do feel like, oh, are we getting Big Brother? So I think, yeah, fair challenge. I would still say it's in the hand of the customer. They can opt out.
That feels fairer, doesn't it? And I think you're spot on there. So interestingly enough, we have to touch on pollen because it enables campaigns that sit across in-store, on-site, off-site, off-site. I always feel like it's that, is it that trifecta that brands need to lean in on? And I suppose, is pollen the only answer? Is it, have you got it right that it's that perfect triangle trifecta?
Yeah, I think it is that perfect triangle. I think that is the sweet spot because actually none of us just stick in one lane. We do all omnichannel. And actually sometimes we do it without even realizing, like we're exposed to the entrance gates, for example. You might not recall them, but it's like the billboards that you see multiple times, and actually it does come into your brain and into your purchasing decision. So there is some of that at play. But I also think actually pollen, what's great about it is that it makes it easy really for brands, and so that they can, our clients can go in there. It's one platform. It's ease of use in terms of self-serve managed service, but the main thing is that it makes easy for them, to reach the people at the right moment in their customer journey, because it's designed around that and it's not media silos. And I think that's the bit we really need to get away from. So it's not just, oh, there's only one channel that can do that. It's understanding, okay, what's the business question that needs to be answered? And then what's the customer journey in terms of the media touch points that we can do that with?
I hope I'm getting this right in saying these questions, because I see walled gardens being a future for retail media, but is there something else coming? And is it, oh God, I'm going to have to say the word. I gotta say AI. Is it AI that's going to have an impact? What is it that's going to help improve the media planning role? That's going to actually be the future of retail media? What is it?
Yeah, I think actually both of those. So let's start with the walled gardens. Retail media do operate a little bit like a walled garden because we obviously rely on that proprietary data. But in the future, it'll be more collaborative in terms of between the platforms and the data cleaning room. So we're already in that space, but I think you'll see an amplification of that. Actually, people start to feel very trusted in these data clean rooms because we're not sharing, customer data. We're just matching on IDs. And again, why would you do that? To get the best possible outcomes for the customer. So I think that's the direction of travel. We're already on that journey and it'll just amplify. In terms of AI, it's, as you say, in every conversation. But I think, for me, it's really important just to remind ourselves that the AI is only as good as the data sitting behind it, the engineers who are kind of working on the scenes, and also how good you are at prompting and kind of making those recommendations. I do see the exciting thing is that, the kid in the candy shop, me, with all this data, we're kind of passing that slicing and dicing of data that me and my team do to any marketeer with conversational AI. So that is really exciting, but there needs to be parameters around it. So I think it's going to enable more time for us to do kind of the judgment, the creativity, all of that kind of fun stuff, and all of the kind of more manual things will be taken on by AI. So I see it as a positive. I don't think AI is going to take kind of my team's role away. I actually think we'll just keep growing and changing what we do.
And all the podcasts we do on Legends of Adtech with all of our guests, that seems to be this consistent in that it's the enabler, you're the driver, make it work for you, make it be efficient. So I think you're in line with that. I'm going to come on in a minute to quick fire, and I'm going to, within that, ask you a few questions about Camilla and put you on the hot spot. But in this segment, it's over to you, Camilla, to give us your breakdown, right? Imagine this. You're delivering a keynote to the retail media industry tomorrow. What 3 topics or challenges would you focus on and why?
If I was given that hot seat challenge right now, it would be proof, not hype. So let's think about what the KPIs are. Let's include incrementality, as I already mentioned, so that it's simple, comparable, and we can actually move budgets with confidence. As I've mentioned, iROAS, I think we'll see the people who nail that will be the winners, actually. So let's see if that comes true. I think AI with accountability. Kind of touching on the last point, let's move fast, but let's keep human judgment in place, and then governance and kind of customer trust has to come through and be really true for that to work. And the third one would probably be, actually the biggest opportunity in retail media isn't ads, it's collaboration. So whether that be data collaboration, partner collaborations, creative, which we haven't really touched on, but I think it's everyone coming together.
I definitely think that collaboration, you could have a session, and by the way, I'd come and listen to you anytime, Camilla, but you could have Camilla's 4 C's. So 5. You get Camilla, C, creative, collaboration, customer, communication. I'm thinking of another one. I think this would be great. I'd come and listen to that. Right. Are you ready for the final segment, which is the quick fire round?
I'm ready. Born ready.
You're a star at industry events. I've seen it firsthand. You champion women as well. One answer, what does it take to become a powerhouse in the industry as a woman?
I think visibility is really key, actually, and it can be learned. So that's one of the things. And I also think confidence follows competency. So become an expert in your field and then drive forward with confidence.
Love that. Be confident, be bold, show up, lean in, all of those things. And actually that leads to the next one, number 2. You're really active, Camilla, in communities like Bloom, Google Power for Partner, DLL. What do you gain and what do you give back?
Yeah, I think these are really important communities for me, actually. Just by kind of being around that supportive women networks, seeing is believing, getting that empowerment, energy, mentorship, networking, all of that comes through. I just find it really energizing to be in a room with powerful women who are leading in the industry. In terms of what do I give back, I give my time, I do mentoring, I speak about my areas of expertise, my lived experience, and I also hope that I put a ladder for others and they can lean on me.
Hell yes to that, and you do. I see it firsthand. Okay, what 3 things are on your must-do checklist for navigating retail media successfully?
The 3 things that are on my checklist for navigating retail media successfully are design the full journey, measure what matters, and then keep the customer at the heart of every decision.
Boom. Check out that trio. That was spot on. Thanks, Camilla. Next one. What other trend could challenge retail media's dominance in the future? Who's coming for your crown?
There are a few, but I don't think they'll get there. I think agentic AI is coming for us, but I don't think it's going to take our crown.
Yeah, I think it'll be woven in. I don't think it's a challenge, but a good, fair point, though. What 3 retail media or industry events are absolute must-attends this year?
So hard to pull it down to 3, but I would say Cannes Lion from a global perspective, Programmatic Pioneers, the series, just in terms of depth and kind of making those connections. It's a very intimate event. And then MadFest for creative inspiration, plus obviously the incredible women's track program.
Lovely. And actually, little plug there, you'll be joining us in the Digital Voice and Partners Cabana. We're looking forward to that one. Before you go on stage, what's your personal prep routine for hyping yourself? And I almost did mine there for anyone watching the video. Mine is this arms back. What's your personal prep to hype yourself?
Yeah, I also have a physical one. So when I prep myself, I roll my shoulders a few times. I actually feel grounded in the floor. And I just think about, actually, I've got this.
I think it's so important. It's been an interesting one that we've debated, but those are 2 good ones there we've given you. You mentioned mentoring. You've mentored multiple women in the industry. What common challenges keep coming up?
Yeah, there are a few that keep coming up, and I think the biggest one is confidence still, which is kind of sad in a way, that it is still there. And I think it fosters itself in loads of different ways. But yeah, unconscious bias, kind of not putting yourself forward for things, feeling like you have to have nailed everything before you can kind of raise your head above the parapet. So I think that's one that, comes up quite a lot.
Is there, on the flip side, one piece of advice that you give most often?
Say yes. So my mantra at the moment is why not me? Why not me today? And I'm trying to get more women to actually feel the same way. And it might sound a bit bolshy, but it's literally just about getting slightly outside of your comfort zone. So we all have a challenger zone. Can you dabble in there? And then can you extend that challenger zone? And I guess I'm trying to practice what I preach.
Love it. Final question. What's not happening in retail media right now that absolutely bloody should be?
Yeah, I think I'll go back to the one we've actually already touched on. But yeah, industry-wide measurement standards is a must, I think, to move forward.
Amazing. Camilla Ray, you've been a star. Thank you so much for being on our show and joining me today.
Thank you, Julia. It's been a pleasure.
So from that, there's so much to unpack. But what we do know is retail media might be one of the 5 fastest growing parts of our industry. As we've heard from Camilla today, it's also one of the most complex apart from one thing: customer first. But if you've got a strong opinion on where retail media is heading, or you really want to know who owns the customer, we want to hear it. And before we go, we do have a final thank you to our season 3 partner, Revving. So Revving believes that digital businesses should have greater control over how and when capital is deployed. They've got their transactional-based funding model and a suite of fully automated solutions, and they're there to provide flexible access to revenue. And Revving, honestly, hand on heart, it really is ensuring that capital is keeping pace with performance, giving finance teams greater control over timing, deployment, and growth. And you can find out more at revving.io. And if you've enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to rate, review, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and of course follow the show so you never miss a single legend. Until next time, I'm Julia Linehan. Keep it juicy.